Electric vehicles, the next frontier, and their refrain resonate like a mantra in today's world, an era where environmental issues dictate all agendas. However, what is often overlooked is that electric cars are not as innocent as they seem. They come with their own complications. So, what are these challenges? That's what we'll explore in today's video. We find ourselves at an ecological crossroads, with cities suffocating in pollution and a warming world casting a darker outlook. For many, the current environmental problems are exacerbated by fossil fuel-powered vehicles, one of the main contributors to pollution. For quite some time, humanity has been seeking cleaner and more sustainable transport alternatives to combat climate change. By the way, do you believe in climate change or the alterations in climate, as some call it? Now, some options seem quite promising. For instance, in Brazil, there's the ethanol-fueled car, which uses fuel derived from sugarcane. It received strong government support in the 1980s, signaling the beginning of cars that exclusively ran on alcohol, famously known for being hard to start in winter. However, the fuel crisis in 1990, with endless queues at gas stations, marked the end of ethanol as the primary fuel source in the country. Only in 2003, with the emergence of flex engines, was it possible to launch cars that could run on both gasoline and ethanol, reviving the use of the Brazilian fuel. Then, there's compressed natural gas, CNG, which pollutes less than fossil fuels, but its cars have limited range. Nevertheless, many gas stations in Brazil already provide this type of fuel, emitting fewer pollutants than gasoline, for example. Additionally, we have hybrid cars that combine an electric motor with a combustion engine. The combustion engine only kicks in during acceleration and at low speeds to save fuel. Their advantage is being able to run purely on electricity in the city, using energy generated during braking to recharge the vehicle, among other options. Despite all these alternatives, electric cars are still seen as the natural successors to gasoline or diesel vehicles, and this preference for electric vehicles is not without reason. In operation, they don't emit pollutants, presenting a cleaner image to the world. Furthermore, they can be recharged conveniently at home. It all sounds like perfection, doesn't it? However, unfortunately, reality is a bit more complicated and goes beyond that. Undoubtedly, electric vehicles are considerably more environmentally friendly, but claiming they are completely harmless is a huge mistake. A striking example of this is the batteries that these electric cars use. When they reach the end of their lifespan, their disposal becomes a challenging issue that can affect urban hygiene. If it's already difficult to discard the batteries we use daily in our phones, imagine those from electric cars. And the worst part is that currently, we don't have a viable solution to this problem yet. Another issue is the dependence of electric vehicles on the famous cobalt, a crucial chemical element for their manufacturing, but one that comes with a problematic extraction process. The Democratic Republic of Congo, the world's main cobalt producer, relies heavily on this element as a major source of wealth, with 70% of global cobalt reserves present there. However, cobalt mining in Congo is extremely problematic. There are two types of mining there, one conducted by large structured companies and the other performed in precarious conditions by ordinary people. This cobalt mining is the sole source of income for thousands of people in the northern part of the country, where working conditions are deplorable. There are no protective equipment or preventive measures against diseases and accidents caused by handling the chemical element. For example, the toxic dust produced when cobalt rocks are broken can cause deadly lung diseases. Moreover, there are no labor laws protecting the workers. According to an interview with a miner conducted by DW website, these workers receive only about $10 if they manage to mine 2 kilograms of cobalt in a single day. But the situation in the mines doesn't end there. Often, in order to access the mines and extract cobalt, children are used, which is unfortunately very common in cobalt mining. It's truly heartbreaking. It's also worth noting that China plays a significant role in the cobalt economy, as 15 of the country's 19 largest industries are Chinese-owned. Unfortunately, the Asian giant is known for disregarding both the environment and workers' rights. There are numerous accusations against Chinese companies for exploiting child labor in cobalt mines, and well-known American corporations have also been accused of benefiting from this exploitation in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Tesla, one of the world's largest electric car manufacturers, is among the companies mentioned in a lawsuit in the United States. It, along with other giants you may be familiar with, such as Apple and Google, is accused of having knowledge that the cobalt used in their products could be associated with child labor exploitation. It is worth noting that many miners consider themselves fortunate if they can extract those 2 kilograms of cobalt in a very productive day. The issue is that cobalt is not only essential in the manufacturing of electric cars, but is also required in large quantities. A car can require up to 30 kilograms of cobalt in its composition, and yet this car is promoted as environmentally sustainable. It's only that cobalt is a non-renewable natural resource. So, for those concerned about the depletion of oil, this doesn't seem like a very intelligent trade-off. Certainly, these vehicles are considered essential components for a greener world, and I believe in that too, as they emit fewer greenhouse gases. However, where does human life fit into this equation? Can we affirm that children play a crucial role in the manufacturing of electric vehicles? On the other hand, oil platforms tend to be models in terms of safety, although they are not 100% safe. There are numerous protocols and equipment aimed at minimizing the risk, which would be inconceivable in a cobalt mine, at least as I record this video. Furthermore, all workers involved in oil exploration and the supply chain, from prospecting to the fuel reaching your car, are legally contracted and have their rights protected. To offset all the harm in manufacturing, electric cars do not emit pollutants, right? Well, that depends on the perspective. As we have seen so far, an electric vehicle obviously goes through a manufacturing process, and during that process, there are several key components to understanding sustainability, or rather, the lack thereof, in this segment. These vehicles are composed of dozens of components like cobalt that need to be mined, refined, transported, and manufactured. These components are either polluting or produced in a way that also harms the environment. Moreover, what is the most obvious way an electric car can pollute the environment? Yes, through electricity. That's because, unlike Brazil, where we use renewable sources such as hydropower to generate electricity, in most parts of the world, the main sources of electrical energy are also non-renewable natural resources like oil and coal. It's true that electric cars do not emit carbon while they are running, but during their production, there is a significant emission of these elements, nickel, graphite, cobalt, and other elements that make up the electric car also emit carbon dioxide and radiation. To produce a single ton of them, 75 tons of toxic waste of different kinds are discarded, along with another ton of radioactive waste. These are numbers you may not have known, but they are astonishing, especially when we consider that these machines are promoted as solutions to clean up the world. It is also important to keep in mind that there are positive and negative aspects regarding electric cars. A very relevant point in favor of them is that they are much more efficient than gasoline or diesel vehicles. In fact, this efficiency is essential since an electric vehicle has a cost per kilometer driven 3 times lower than a combustion engine car. The performance combined with the efficiency of electric vehicles is admirable, and the absence of noise is another advantage when it comes to noise pollution. Combustion engines are very noisy, significantly impacting cities and increasing stress levels. Electric vehicles, on the other hand, are so quiet that in the European Union, a law has been created that obliges manufacturers to add artificial noise to these vehicles to prevent accidents, especially when they are moving at low speeds or during parking maneuvers. At first glance, the electric car seems to be the perfect car: silent, beautiful, fast, efficient, and environmentally clean. But as we have seen, that's not the whole story. The range of electric vehicles still leaves much to be desired, requiring frequent recharges, which are considered slow when compared to the refueling time of a traditional car. This is certainly an important factor, as according to the University of California, 1 out of every 5 Americans who bought an electric car regretted it and returned to using a combustion engine car. But I believe that was in the early days of these cars. I still have great hope for these vehicles to be optimized. And of course, as we have seen so far, they contribute to less pollution. However, perhaps the biggest stain on the image of electric vehicles is the exploitation that occurs in Congo, an unequal country where children are forced to work to survive. Undoubtedly, electric cars represent a great advancement for humanity, and we could say they are inevitable. However, categorically stating that they do not harm the planet, I believe, would be a mistake. The world is not as black and white as you think. There are good and bad aspects in almost everything. And if electric cars are destined to dominate the world, so be it. But I hope they can solve all their problems, including if you are not in favor of electric cars. I'll leave this video playing on your screen now, where I talk about a major project that Toyota has implemented in the world and in its cars. Toyota, one of the pioneers in hybrid cars and electric motors, openly stated through its former CEO that they did not believe in electric cars and developed a new combustion engine project, which you can see in the video playing on your screen. If you liked this video, don't forget to leave a like, and make sure to subscribe to the channel. I upload new videos every day. See you tomorrow.